They banned me from the family reunion because I couldn't pay $50 for the group t-shirt. What they didn't know was that I had already bought the entire reunion hall in my name. My name is Jason, and I was the punchline of every family joke. They called me Mr. Broke, laughed at my thrift store shoes, and even blocked me from the family group chat. But what hurt the most was when my own cousin handed me the invitation and said, "This one's for family only. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you've ever been underestimated. This story will blow your mind. They thought I was struggling because I never showed off. But the truth was, while they were flexing fake designer belts and renting cars for Instagram, I was quietly building a digital marketing agency from my tiny basement. I didn't even have a proper chair, just a stack of books and an old laptop. But I had one thing they didn't: grit. Last year, when Uncle Mark hosted the reunion, they held it in a luxury banquet hall and made it clear: no contribution, no entry. I didn't say a word, just smiled and handed them a check. To help out. What they didn't notice was the name on the payment. For months I worked in silence. While they mocked my struggle life, I negotiated deals, closed clients overseas, and reinvested every dollar. I didn't buy a fancy car. I bought the building that hosted their reunion. Fast forward to today, the reunion was in full swing. Laughter, champagne, cameras flashing. I arrived in a plain black hoodie. No one greeted me. One aunt even whispered, "Why is he here?" Then the manager walked in and said loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Excuse me, is Mr. Jason Williams here, the owner of this facility?" Every single head turned. Glasses stopped midair. My cousin, yes, the same one who told me I wasn't family enough, spilled wine on herself in shock. I stood there, calm. "Yeah, I'm here. Just wanted to make sure everything ran smoothly for my guests." And then, my uncle stood up and said something that made the room go completely silent. "Wait, this place is yours?" I looked straight at him and nodded. "Yes, I bought it 6 months ago." The silence was unbearable. For the first time in my life, every single person in that room was staring at me. Not to mock me, but because they had no idea how to process what they just heard. My Aunt Linda, who once told me I'd never amount to anything because I wasn't ambitious like her sons, tried to laugh it off. "Jason, you're joking, right?" Her voice cracked. She was nervous. I'd never seen her nervous. I pulled out the event contract from my pocket and laid it on the table. My name was right there at the bottom. Owner and manager, Jason Williams. "Still think I'm joking?" I asked calmly. She didn't respond. My cousin Brad, the one who made a whole Instagram story mocking my poor lifestyle, started stammering. "Bro, I didn't know you were doing this well. We thought you were still, figuring life out." "No, Brad," I said. "You were figuring out filters. I was figuring out revenue streams." Everyone's face changed. The arrogance, gone. The fake pity, gone. All that was left was discomfort and curiosity. Suddenly my father, who hadn't spoken to me in 2 years because I embarrassed him by not going into the family real estate business, stood up. He looked around like he'd just woken up in someone else's life. "Jason," he said slowly, How did you afford all this?" I stared at him for a moment. The man who once said, "No woman will marry a broke man like you," was now asking how I built something on my own. "It's amazing what you can build when no one's watching. And no one believes in you," I replied. My voice didn't shake. His eyes did. Then the doors opened, and the moment they saw who walked in next, jaws literally dropped. It was the mayor. And he didn't just come to attend, he came for me. "Jason," he smiled, "thanks again for your generous donation. The community center renovation will change hundreds of lives. I had to stop by and thank you personally." The room froze. "And my father?" He sat back down. Slowly. Silently. But what he said next, under his breath, I'll never forget. "I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't respond to my father. I just looked at him. This man who once told me I was a disgrace to the family because I chose computers over construction. Now he was sitting in a chair I owned, surrounded by walls I paid for, at an event he once said I'd never be invited to." The mayor turned to the crowd and raised a toast. "To Jason Williams, a man who reminds us that true success doesn't shout. It whispers until the whole world has to listen." The applause was slow, awkward, hesitant. No one knew whether to clap out of respect or fear. But then came the real twist. The event coordinator walked up to me and asked, "Jason, do you want to give your speech now or after the dinner?" My aunt, the same woman who once told people I was probably on welfare, suddenly perked up. "Speech?" she asked. "Wait, you're a speaker today." I nodded. "Actually, I'm the keynote speaker. They booked the venue, not knowing the owner was also on the program." I walked up to the mic, and the energy shifted completely. Everyone who had ignored me earlier was now glued to every word. My slideshow started playing behind me. Photos of my basement office, my first online order, the night I made my first 10K, the moment I signed the papers for the hall. Every slide was proof that the kid they called a failure had been quietly winning while they were too busy trying to impress each other. And then, I shared one final photo. A picture of my mom's old kitchen table, where I used to sit late, at night with a cracked phone, learning how to run Facebook ads from YouTube videos. "This," I said, pointing to the photo, "is where it all started. No mentors, no money, no support. Just hunger, Wi-Fi, and every single one of your voices in my head telling me I wasn't enough." No one laughed. No one whispered. Then a voice from the back, my cousin Emily, the only one who had ever been kind to me, stood up and clapped. Slowly. "You proved them all wrong, Jason." And just as the crowd started clapping with her, the hall manager rushed over to me, panic in his eyes. "Jason," he whispered, "you need to come with me. Right now. There's someone outside. Says she's your wife." Everyone turned. I wasn't married. At least, not that they knew of. So who the hell was outside? I walked toward the entrance with the hall manager by my side, heart pounding. "She says it's urgent," he whispered. "She refused to wait. Said it's about your past." The door opened, and there she stood, Samantha. The woman I loved 10 years ago. The same woman who left me because I couldn't afford dinner at her friend's engagement party. The same one who once said, "I can't build a life with someone who has nothing." Now she was standing at my door, dressed in an expensive coat, but her eyes weren't shining with confidence anymore. They were trembling, nervous. The whole family started crowding around the lobby, whispering like wildfire. "Is that her? Wasn't she the one who dumped him? What's she doing here now?" I stared at her. "Samantha? What are you doing here?" She looked down, ashamed. "Jason, I didn't know how else to reach you. I saw the news, the donations, your name everywhere. Her voice cracked. "I made a huge mistake. I thought money was everything. And now I realize I walked away from the only man who ever really loved me." The air went cold. Even the music inside the hall had stopped. People were leaning in, waiting to see what I'd say. My father had walked up behind the crowd. My aunt had her phone out, recording. Samantha stepped closer. I just wanted a chance to apologize. And maybe talk. I'm not here to cause drama. I looked her dead in the eye. You walked away when I had nothing. Now you're showing up when I have everything. Why now? Tears welled in her eyes. Because I'm alone. I'm not asking for a second chance. I just want to say I was wrong, and that you became everything I told you you'd never be. I should have felt triumphant. I should have enjoyed this. But something didn't sit right. That's when my phone buzzed. One new email. Subject. Urgent. Internal breach in your company. I opened it, and my heart stopped. Attached were files, screenshots, account transfers, and a name. Brad. My cousin. He was stealing from my company. And not just a little, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The same cousin who mocked me for being broke had hacked his way into my systems using an old password I once shared during a Thanksgiving years ago. And the last line of the email? We believe he wasn't working alone. I looked up, straight at Brad, who was laughing in the background with a drink in his hand, and then at Samantha, whose hands were shaking. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a coincidence. I stared at Samantha, the apology still hanging in the air like a trap waiting to snap shut. Her trembling hands, Brad's forced laughter in the background, the timing. All of it was too perfect. Too planned. I stepped back slowly, scanning the room. My brain was moving fast now. I remembered a strange login from 2 weeks ago. Miami IP. Brad had just vacationed there. Samantha lived there. I pulled out my phone, tapped the speaker button, and called my company's security officer. Run a trace, I said, loud enough for the room to hear. Check Brad's email access and see if any logins link back to Samantha Harper. Brad's drink froze midair. Samantha's face went pale. Seconds later, the officer replied, Jason, you're not going to like this. Her IP shows up 6 times over the past 3 months. Every time Brad exported financial data, she was logged in from a mirrored device. Gasps. Someone dropped their wine glass. My aunt whispered, She was in on it? I turned toward Samantha, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut steel. So you didn't come to apologize. You came to clean up the mess before I found out. Tears were gone now, replaced by silence. And Brad? He tried to run. Tried. Security tackled him before he reached the exit. Phones were out, cameras rolling. My family watched the cousin who once called me a loser get dragged out of my building in handcuffs. Samantha just stood there. Still. Cold. Exposed. I could press charges, I said softly, stepping toward her. But I won't. She looked up, stunned. Not because I forgive you, I added, but because some lessons are more painful when lived out in silence. I turned away, walked back into the hall. Applause erupted, not because they supported me, but because they were scared now, respectful. My father walked up, eyes red. Jason, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm proud of you. I looked him straight in the eye. I didn't do this for your pride. I did it to survive. And just as I picked up the mic to finish my speech, a teenage boy from the back of the room stood up. I didn't recognize him. Maybe a cousin's kid. He raised his hand. Can I ask something? He said. How did you stay so calm when everyone hated you? I smiled. For the first time that night, it was real. Because the best revenge, I said, is never anger. It's success in silence and letting the results speak for you. And with that, I dropped the mic. They called me poor. But I was the one who paid the price and still came out richer than all of them.